and welcome to the Board Game Design Hour. I'm your host, Matthew Dunstan. How's everyone doing today? I can see there's a Jay lurking out. No worries, lurk away. Alex is around, Sates and Rob. Welcome, everyone. Hope you are all doing well on this, the first day of spring, I guess, technically, depending on... Hey, Rory. Afternoon, Michael. How you going? Welcome. Yeah, I guess technically it is the start of spring. I don't know if that's how it works. I guess Alex is highly caffeinated again. Excellent. Best way to enjoy any stream, I'm sure, is to be extremely caffeinated. Yeah, how has everyone been? How's your weekends, your Mondays been? I really enjoyed. I saw some of you well, kind of in the chat, watching Bez's stream this morning, which was a lot of fun. Hey, Bess, how are you going? Do you have a new... Oh, no, this is a different... because it's not Bass mode. It's a different Bass. Welcome, Bass. Yeah, this... or maybe it's not a new Bass. Maybe I've mixed that up. In any case, it's definitely feeling less and less like winter, which is nice. It's not... I'm not starting the stream in the dark anymore, which is a nice feeling. Yeah, we actually had a really nice weekend of gaming. Sorry, I wandered off. I was talking about Bez's stream. For those who didn't catch Bez's stream this morning, she interviewed David Turtzi, a designer I'm sure many of you know, and it was a really interesting interview, I think. I would, yeah, definitely go back and watch it. David's definitely quite a character. I've known David for quite a while, actually. We, you know, used to go to the same London Playtest group a long time ago now, and you know, seen him with various conventions and things. And I played a very early version of Anachrony. I remember, which didn't work at all. But yeah, it was a fun interview. So yeah, definitely go and check that out. Hey Robin, how are you going? Hey Nicholas. Rob said, oh, okay, I'm sorry. I hope your friend is okay. But yeah, hopefully you can catch up on the you know, on-demand video afterwards. So, sorry, should drink some tea. It's somehow nice to hear it didn't work at all. What didn't work? Oh, Anachrony, yes. I've played a few of David's games at a very early stage of their design. I played Dice Settlers also at a very early stage of his design. So I must. I'm not his guinea pig, but it's just funny how it's just turned out that I've played things at a very early stage. But anyway, yeah. So anyway, it was very good interview. In terms of thinking about the weekend for me, actually with gaming, I was quite fortunate. I picked up Fields of Arle, which is actually quite old, like 7-year-old Uwe Rosenberg game now. I think it came out in 2014, even though in my head it doesn't seem very old. But it's a two-player, you know, quite complex two-player game, probably his most complex two-player game, but, you know, reminiscent of some things like you see in Nysfjord or in Feast for Odin, things like this. Hey Mendel, how are you going? Welcome. And we were, yeah, it takes a while. Our first game was about 3 hours for a two-player game, but we managed to get through 2 games over the weekend, which at least makes me feel a little bit better for the slightly exorbitant price I had to pay for an English copy. I was lucky that I found one in a shop, actually not very far, a new shop. It's not a new shop, but a shop I didn't know that it's in Prague. It's quite surprising how many board game shops there are in Prague, in fact, and there's at least 5 or 6 really good ones, like very good hobby-based, you know, shops. Yeah, which is quite surprising actually. I think it's a fairly high, like a fairly high concentration, and here was one that's not even that very far away from me. It was about a 5-minute tram ride, which I'd never been to, but I'd found them online because, you know, I Google things and see if I can get them here. So yeah, that was nice, and also picked up Quadropolis, which I have next to me here, which I'm hoping to play sometime soon as well. It's a Czech copy, but it's language independent. I had played Quadropolis quite a while ago, just once, but this was on special, so on sale rather. So yeah, it's funny. I don't know, Australians. I don't know if it's Australians or my family. We'd always say, instead of saying things on sale, we'd say things are on special, because I think some of the shops in Australia would say special instead of sale. So I'm not sure if that's a Dunstanism or if it's an Australianism. Yeah. But anyway, it was. We'll have to see what it's like. I think it could be a nice game like that. If I like quadrupples, then I'm going to love Zengarden. Yeah, I definitely will. I look forward to. I'd love to try out Zengarden, but I'm not. I'm not sure if I'll still like it, I guess is the point. But I'm going to give it a try. It wasn't too much for it. Hi, Bass. How you going? Another Bass. Welcome. How you going? Rob says, are there many board games with Czech editions other than the obvious CGE? Well, actually, it's quite funny. CGE is not a distributor. So the funny thing is that in Czech Republic, there's quite a few CGE games which are not directly distributed by CGE. So they're distributed by one of the major Czech distributors. So you'll see another logo on the box, interestingly enough. It's definitely, I've seen a huge growth over, so I've been coming to the Czech Republic for 12 years now or so, something like that, on and off, and definitely seen a huge growth in the kind of number of games being localized and the number of companies that are doing that. So it's obviously not just the distributors, but there are even some obviously there are some local publishers as well that will localize some things. So for example, one of my games, Costa Rica, was localized by Albi, which is one of the sort of Czech publishers / distributors. Funnily enough, actually, the head of Albi, it's not very important for those people, but also really loves bread, and so has opened this chain of really amazing bakeries in Prague. So it's an interesting combination. But but there are a lot of games with Czech editions. It's often you'll get Czech and Slovak together because often you can just print 2 rule books and it's not too bad. I think the market is big enough. There's enough people doing it. All the Fantasy Flight stuff, for example, a lot of that's translated into Czech. There's a very wide range of games you can get in Czech, I guess, which is good. It means that I can find stuff that I want, and also there's enough of a crowd, I guess, that is happy to do the more expert games or hobby games that are only English. That's also fine. I guess there's also a relatively international. It's a reasonably cosmopolitan city probably as well. A lot of foreigners who live here. So board and bread. Yeah, there you go. There haven't been too many board game themed bakeries. So maybe bread and board. Well, bread and board sounds much more like prison or something. Not quite like prison, but it sounds a little Spartan. Crust and Court. Yeah, I like this. I like I like where this is going. It makes me how much I really like all this bread. Anyway, so anyway, thanks everyone for joining. I took a little bit of a break on Friday. I am back refreshed, and so I guess we can start with. I've had Bez's singing in my head of recent highlights, dancing delights. But so I'm just going to become a copycat channel or something like that. Where have I got? Oh, news. Here we go. Action goes to Baker Bread. We actually picked up some of these kind of slightly not ready-made breads, but where you can buy the yeast and the flour together. There's some really nice seeded breads, which hopefully we'll do some baking tomorrow morning. I'm hoping to get back. It's sort of like something we did very early on in lockdown, but now not doing. We didn't do it for a while, but now we're kind of getting back to it on our. It's almost a year anniversary since the lockdown started, and the Czech Republic is celebrating with going into yet another hard lockdown from today. So that's always a bit of fun. Alex says, I had an entire day with no streams. I was getting the shakes. Yeah, it's on Friday. I see. Oh, okay. So, yeah, sorry, Robin. Yeah, I don't really know how to. I guess there must be a better way to inform people that a stream's not on. I mean, I guess if I'm not there, I'm not there. I tend to be pretty good. Even if I'm running a bit late, I try and put the screen of I'm coming. So anyway, sorry about that to anyone who came on Friday, but. Yeah, I suppose I'm still kind of working out what I want to do, but I haven't made any decisions yet. But on to sort of news. There is pretty much no news. I was sort of thinking whether I was going to recap. Well, I mean, there's just basically been been puttering along with some existing projects, getting back. So we have a game with Plan B, for example, that we've been working on with sort of the editorial team, doing some edits and working on that. Hopefully it'll come out later this year. But that's good. It's nice to sort of get back into the saddle kind of thing. And in terms of game things, I've been trying a new. I'm not sure if you can see actually. If I take away the banner, you can probably see some game stuff behind me here. And that was kind of my last week's exploration, I guess. I started a new idea actually. I think so AEG passed on a design of mine, and sort of in talking with AEG, it always reminded me that I like to really try and make games for them. I really like. I've talked before on the stream. I really like the style of game that they're kind of making now, these sort of engine building, sort of simultaneous action, fairly approachable kind of games that they're like, I use the word moreish, I guess, that you always want to play a bit, you always want to keep playing, you want to play another game. They're easy and to play. And we have a game with them already that will come out later this year, I'm hoping, that we're also doing a lot of final touches for at the moment. But it reminded me that I kind of would love to keep working with them and like to make a game for them. So this started. So I can even show the board. I guess I can throw everything off it. It's very exciting square grid, but it was basically trying to work with polyominoes and deck building and seeing how they could sort of combine. I didn't quite get there, but I just started today during Bess's stream. I started working on a sort of a sideways twist from the game. So I suspect also that might have been last week when I didn't stream on Friday. It might have been a bit of a feeling of sometimes you have these weeks as a game designer where you just try a few new things and they kind of, you think they're going to work and you put up enough time. Like, there's obviously ideas that you have an idea and it just doesn't work and it doesn't really take up much of your time or your effort, and it feels fine. But there are kind of ideas in the middle where you think there's something good there. You spend some time on a prototype, you play it, it's kind of okay. You make some changes, you keep playing, it's okay. And there's like that kind of expectation the game might be good or something like that. But I got to the end of this at the end of the week. I played sort of 3 different versions, which is pretty good for me. I'm not usually that quick to iterate. But at the end of it, it was just like, it's just not very good. Like it just doesn't work. And I think also because with the games with AEG, I really had the restraint for myself that it has to be, approachable in some way. It can't be a completely complicated game. That's quite important for me. And so it is quite difficult at the start, because if you don't quite have the crystal of the idea, like really, really worked out, it's very easy to make it quite complicated. It's easy for the game to be very complicated, and it's hard to kind of see that kind of simple core. And if you don't have it, you don't have it. And it's sort of like, I was like, I know I don't have it, but I have a new sort of idea. So yeah, I'm hoping that tomorrow I'll finish off the prototype and play it for the first time. And I may be able to share it on the stream later the week, depending on how things are going. Yeah. But yeah, and today's stream, sort of moving from the news. If I remember anything, I'll say it. But the thing about today was it was inspired very much by Daniel Solis, who inspires me quite regularly anyway. But he tweeted out on, I guess this was Friday, I think. No, well, I think he tweeted last week, but the video came out yesterday. And this is idea, basically, he released a really great video where he went over some old ideas that he'd sort of worked on for various amounts of time, but for whatever reason had never kind of gone further with. And he kind of like released them to the world for people just to have at it and just, enjoy it as it was. It's a really great video. I would very much recommend it. I will drop the link in the chat. So go out and check it out. I mean, I love the way Daniel thinks. I think he has some really interesting mechanical. what you'll see in the video is that Daniel's really driven by visuals, and he's working out how something might look on the table and how it might be laid out, which is very different from me. It's very opposite from me. Like his skills are as a graphic designer and art director, and so these prototype things look amazing, and that helps him think about games. For me, it's very, very different, but I find it very inspiring to be able to look at these things. There was nothing in the ideas that directly like flash something in me, but it did make me think that like it might be a kind of cool thing to do this kind of same thing on the stream. So today I'm going to be sort of sharing a number of ideas, more recent ideas actually, because there's a bit more of a chance I'm going to remember how they work. But I'm going to share those ideas with you all, and they're kind of free for anybody to work on. So if you see something here, if you want to work with me on it, I'm pretty open to that. But B, if you want to go off and work on it yourself, go ahead and just do that. Because yeah, I think there are some interesting little nuggets in here, maybe. Although we'll see. we're gonna explore that and see. But yeah, so that's kind of the thing for today. So yeah, settle in. Enjoy me as the background music if you're doing other things, and let's go. I'll catch up with chat first. Nicholas says, I started 3 new things between late last week and the weekend, trying not to overwhelm myself too much. One of the ideas from that video. Okay, that's fantastic. Yeah, you should definitely let Daniel know. I'm sure he would be really chuffed to kind of hear what it's germinated from that, which would be really cool. And Rob says Daniel video is cool. I love the way he shares stuff so openly, at least when it's his personal project. He's been a big inspiration to me over the years. Yeah, he's been a big inspiration to me as well. And I it isn't just recent. He's been sharing things very openly for a very long time, which was which is good. Rob says, I'd love time to work on something new. I seem to fill all my spare time with projects. Yeah, that's always the problem. So maybe if that's a problem for you, I would switch away from the stream, because it's not going to get better. But anyway, so hold on, I'm going to have to share. So the tricky thing, and we're going to see how this is going to work today, is that well, there's a few what's the word, wrinkles in this. Obviously I collaborate with a lot of people, so I'm trying not to include ideas which were originally with collaborators, because I haven't talked to them before I do it, and I don't think it's fair to just sort of like open things up, even though realistically the games, there's a couple of games where I was working on with Brett, and I have a feeling Brett wouldn't really mind me talking about them. But so yeah, that's a slightly gray area. The other thing is that in a way, actually, the last couple of years weren't too bad. I didn't start so many projects that I didn't finish. So, but I think there's some interesting things in there. And the third thing that's slightly tricky is, because I'm not a visual designer, a lot of these prototypes, even though they are prototypes, they were kind of, a lot of them are from an age before digital. I also can't, I think my computer would like levitate or start smoking in front of my eyes if I tried to run Tabletop Simulator and stream at the same time. So even for the games that might exist in Tabletop Simulator, I can't really stream. So we're going to do our best. I'm going to try and like flash cards on the screen and talk about it. But if you have any questions about any of the games, any of the ideas, drop it in the chat, and we'll chat about it. Rob says, I don't have time for new projects. Doesn't stop me there. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So the first game is a game called Bretland. So I wanted to make a Viking game. Well, I already have made a Viking game. But so as I understand it, I'm not a historian, but Bretland was the name given to Britain by the Vikings. And I wanted to, I see, yes, I could use screenshot. That's a good point. That would assume that I'm organized. So, I mean, Bretland comes from my love of multi-use card games. So Race of the Galaxy being one of the great instances of that, innovation to a certain extent as well. And I just really like those types of games, basically. And this was sort of my take on it. And there were a couple of twists. One of the really key twists was that all the cards would be double-sided, and that on one side you would have Bretland, yeah, inspired by Brett Gilbert. Each card would be on the one side something a little bit traditional that you expect in these games, that you have a card with ability, and maybe there's like a resource that the card is as well. and there would be an action symbol, which I'll get to in a sec. But on the other side of the card would be a piece of a map. And the idea would be that actually that you wouldn't just have, you know, a part of it would be a tableau building kind of game, which is sort of interesting. But there would be an aspect of the game where you would take a certain amount of these cards randomly and set up essentially a map between the players, which would be like the islands that the Vikings were sort of going around and attacking and things like this. Each card would be different. And of course, the cards you remove to make the map won't be in the deck. So that gives you a bit of variety, which I really liked. It's a really easy way to make a map, but also to give some sort of table presence, which I think is really nice. And it also adds an interactive element. So you would have cubes, essentially, that you would be placing on the islands to potentially give you other abilities, but also to control them. So you'd be getting points at the end of the game. There are a couple of other little wrinkles to it. You know, I had these kind of like storm fronts here where the idea would you would have a ship, a main ship that would move around, and you could pay a card to move, essentially. So that was one of the uses of the cards. That you could toss away a card to move your ship one space. But these storms would block passage. So it would start to actually, in a very simple way, sort of carve up space. So, you know, so that you know, for example, like you can't go through here. So you have to kind of go up through here to get to this island, for example. Of course, there's a bit of a problem because this one is completely isolated. I think I might have been one of the, you know, one of the things would be that you have to pay 2 cards to go through a storm instead of 1. So that they're not completely impossible, but it would give some sort of like a bit of like texture to that. And the other kind of main idea, I guess, was that you could use cards to activate your other cards. So when you would build your cards, they had a particular icon on them, and if you paid another card with that icon, you could effectively activate that particular card. So essentially, like you're gaining. You get a hand of 5 cards every round, and it's, you know, you could use them to build other cards, doing the whole sort of discard a card to pay for the building, or you could essentially you know, activate that building with a matching worker. So, you know, it would turn into a worker. Like if I use the axe from this one, I could discard that card to essentially activate this building. I could do that once each turn. So, you know, it had sort of this sort of mix. I'd probably say the most interesting thing, I think, were the double-sided cards. I think I really like. I don't think there are many of these tableau building games that have that interactive element. I think Deus is one good example. I mean, Monumental in a way. But those are kind of bigger games. I like the idea that you could have this interaction still in a kind of 110 card game, because you would use 20 of the so cards and like a minimum number of like kind of, you know, like basically some cubes per player and ship. And I think it could just look really good as well. So yeah, that was Brettland. Why did it stop? I think for me, I had trouble breaking it really out of it's just another kind of Race for the Galaxies type of game. I mean, it's not exactly, but I think the kind of currency things didn't come together. You know, you kind of had to get the economy right in the game to get the kind of flow of cards. And I don't think I was necessarily like super far off. I think I was probably, you know, if I revisited it now, I could probably make it quite a bit more simpler. Like, for example, these cards all had these icons with this idea that you could like pillage cards from your hand for points, essentially. So, you know, if I pillage this card, instead of it being a bit, I could pillage its horses and put them like I put them under a building, essentially. So that will kind of give them more points. And so you could have like a little bit of like, you could kind of like chain your cards into points. I'm sure I could cut one thing out of all of this, and it might make it just a little bit more simple, which was something I sort of was butting my head against. But yeah, that's kind of where I was. Nicholas said double-sided plus tableau building makes things sprawlers, even though it's a slightly different approach. Yeah, definitely. I mean, we played a lot of Circle the Wagons last year. It was one of the games I bought very early on in lockdown, and I really like it. I really should get Sprawlopolis, actually, because I'm sure I would also enjoy it. And yeah, I think there's still a part of me. I mean, we do have a game that we've just signed, which is also double-sided, all unique cards sort of thing, which it's something I kind of like. But it's definitely something also I like making a map out of cards. I know there are some publishers who really don't like that idea, and that they much prefer like a real, like have tiles and making a board out of cards is a bit tricky. But I always love these games which are very portable and like just a deck of cards, and being able to have that kind of like slightly bigger experience. was something I was sort of going for. But yeah, so that is Bretland basically. So we'll go through these as quickly, not as quickly as possible, but anyway. Another one was based on, so it's called Towers of Hanoi, and so for those who don't know, the Towers of Hanoi are, I might be actually able to get a better picture of it. I'm sure there's something on Wikipedia that's going to show it. Yeah, so the Towers of Hanoi are kind of a famous sort of puzzle in a way, where you have a set of discs that are in sort of strictly decreasing size, and you start with them sort of disordered across these three, towers, and you basically you're just going to make moves where you take the top disc from one and put it on top of any disc on a different peg, with a rule that you can never put larger discs on top of smaller discs. Yes, that's the rule. So it's kind of a puzzle, basically. And the other thing, I call this Towers of Hanoi because, but it's slightly a slight twist on it. There are a few Tower of Hanoi games. I'm sure they are. This game isn't strictly that, because although it's partially, but partially not. The other thing I was sort of inspired by is a little bit something like photosynthesis, but there's also another logic puzzle called Skyscrapers, which I'm sure some of you will know. I'm trying to look that up now as well. Can I find it? Yes, here we go. So, oh gosh, great. So Skyscrapers is a puzzle where you have a grid essentially, and the number you have to, it's a little bit like Sudoku. You have, in this case, it would be numbers 1 to 4. You have to put the numbers, in unit, like each row and column will have each number 1 to 4. And the idea is that the numbers represent like buildings. So a 1 is a building height 1, a building 2 is a building size 2, etc. And the numbers outside the grid tell you, when you look in that direction along the row or column, it tells you how many buildings you can see. So if it's a 1, it means that it only can see one building. And the idea is that a taller building will shield any shorter buildings that are behind it in the row. So for example, with this a 1, then this has to be a 4, because if it was not a 4, you're always going to be able to see the 4 in every row and column, because it's the tallest building. And if you but if it's 1, it means that, well, the only thing is 4, because anything that would be in front of it, you'd be also automatically be able to see, because it's shorter than the 4. Anyway, so there's this sort of idea, and all of that kind of together came to an idea where you're essentially building in a grid, but the idea that you would have a scoring piece moving around the edge of the grid, a little bit like photosynthesis, but much more sort of minute, where you would have rows and columns, like a nonogram, maybe. Hey Ben, by the way, I don't know that puzzle so much. Oh yes, and you're right, Nicholas. Dr. Eureka is a sort of quite famous, Towers Hanoi sort of thing. Yeah, I don't know nanograms. I feel like I should have a quick check of that. Nanogram. Oh, I see. Yeah, I mean, it's a similar kind of puzzle. Oh yes, I see. Yeah, it's a slightly more complicated. Well, yeah, nanograms don't have this idea of height, I guess, but it's another sort of numerical logic puzzle. There's a whole bunch of them. Maybe my channel is going to slowly morph into a numerical puzzle solver kind of channel, but who knows. But so the idea would be that you have this grid, and it's a little bit, I think we were thinking of something like a next move games, like an Azul-ish kind of game with nice pieces. And the idea would be that you have sort of 5 colors of pieces, and each color piece you have 3 pieces of different size, like a biggest one, a medium one, and a little one. And there would be this sort of draft where you would draft pieces and start building your sort of skyscrapers in this grid, with the idea that as you walk around, you basically score points when you can see different towers of different heights, basically. And there would be some like fuzzy thing about the scoring. Like you'd get more points if you could see more towers of different colors, for example, as well. And there was also the rule that you couldn't place, you had Towers of Hanoi style, that you couldn't ever place a bigger piece on top of a smaller piece. You could put equal pieces on top of each other, and that's fine. Yeah. Hal says, reminds me a little of Pueblo, which had a piece moving outside, looking for a certain perspective. Use the 3D touch. Okay, I'll have to look it up. But this is all sort of very point scoring. Like every turn you'd build something, move your piece around one step, and score that kind of row or column that it could see. And in this case, because you had hexes, you'd actually see two. Like if you were here, you'd be able to see this column here and this sort of diagonal row here. Yeah, so that was kind of the idea. And then you would have these kind of like goals that you would score as you go around. A little bit like Cartographers, for example, where you'd score the A goal, every time you score the B goal from halfway onwards. And you'd kind of be building up this thing. And the other thing that was kind of cool was that you'd also have these bridges. So this idea that you could have bridge pieces that would connect adjacent buildings, essentially, and like connect them into one big building or something like that. Yeah, anyway, so that's kind of where we were. I mean, it's an interesting idea. I think the idea of having a very simple kind of drafting game where the pieces have like kind of size and color, and having that kind of interact in an interesting way in that kind of abstract, again, Plan B kind of, Plan B / Next Move Games kind of world. Yeah, and I think we were trying things where you would draft cards that would tell you how you get the pieces. I mean, there was some idea that you have a bag that you just pull the pieces out of, that you'd be able to work with and things like that. Yeah, it was, I think it was the thing that felt like it could work, but it was always just a little too fiddly. It was like just a few too many variables. And I know, again, like I sort of talked with the AG game earlier, that, I really am looking more and more for like very clear, simple games, or at least mechanically. Not even mechanically, but how you can like interface with them, like giving players a way to get into a game in a simple way. Not that the game overall has to be simple, not that it can't have deep strategies, but as sort of a basic point, allowing a new player, an easy way into the game. And this was just a little too mathsy. And like, obviously the skyscrapers kind of stuff was also, it's like a little bit technical, and and it was also a bit tricky working out like exactly how do you restrict building, because if you can build anywhere, then that's a lot of things that you're thinking about. When you have a piece, you can build it in like 14 different spaces or slightly less. There were times where I don't know if we have, then we tried things where you would like kind of have a symbol, and like a card would be flipped, which would tell you where you could build, and there were 3 of each symbol, so that kind of restricted that a bit. So it's almost like a roll and build kind of thing. Yeah, it's like, I think, and the other kind of tricky thing is also just how many pieces you need. Like it is, I mean, the pieces don't have to be that big, but yeah. Anyway, so we didn't quite get there, but I think, I still think there could be a really interesting kind of like building, abstract scoring kind of game. I don't think there have any that use that kind of verticality to it. And as someone said, as Hal said with Fabo, like having games that get people to get up and look around the board, as Robert said. Yeah, exactly. Not with board games to play stand up and walk around the board. Yeah. So I see, Beth, you've discovered Star Battle. Yes. Regular viewers of the stream know my love of Star Battle. I've managed to get a few people addicted to it. So yeah, on some past streams I've streamed Star Battles. Star Battle I think is one of my favorite logic puzzles, like Sudoku-like puzzles, which never quite got the popularity of something like Sudoku, but it is a lot of fun. So yeah, so that's Towers of Hanoi, which we sort of named slightly jokingly. Obviously, there's some relation. It could, it's Towers of Hanoi / skyscrapers / Azul or something like that. Yeah. This is this is quite a rarity for me, because I have a game which I've written rules for, even though I've only done 1 or 2, a couple of versions of it. In fact, never played it. So there is a game that's coming out very soon called Spy Connection, which is designed by Brett Gilbert and myself. and it's kind of a route building game. And the idea is that you lay down your sort of you have like agents, which are pieces, and you lay them down at one time to claim a route. And I guess I was always trying to make a sort of a bigger Euro game style experience. Oh, thank you, Fernzy FFG, for the follow, by the way. If you're still watching, thanks very much for the follow. These routes essentially in Web of Spies, sorry, not Web of Spies, Spy Connection. Web of Spies was our prototype name for it. Spy Connection, you're trying to travel between places efficiently, and it's kind of quite a simple game. And I kept thinking that I really wanted a game which took, and one of the key things about Spy Connection is you basically have one currency. You have this supply, this limited supply of agents. You only have like, I think it's like 14 agents. And the idea is that if they're all on the board, if you need to make another connection, you need to remove some agents from another kind of route, another connection, and use them to forge your new connection. So your network is always evolving. And there are some other ways in which you use your agents sometimes to secure new kind of like contracts, new places you need to go to. And there's some interaction in that you have to put more agents on a route if someone's already there. So this idea that there's this sort of central currency that goes through the game, it flows into this network building sort of thing. And I always thought that basis could be the basis for a slightly larger Euro-style game. And so I kept knocking out these things where you would have this same idea that you still were building networks, but those disks, those agents could be used in more different ways. So the idea is you could station them in a field, and they would start making basically making resources every round. I'm sure there may be some like other. No, I have. In fact, I don't think I even have the. Yeah, like there would be. Like there would be basically places within. Where are we? Like you might have like different sort of locations where you'd be able to place the discs, like sort of claim them for different bonuses or things like that. And I had like bonus cards and things like that. But basically it was still trying to make this idea of sort of a bigger sort of Spy Connection style game. So, I mean, I guess the main thing will be is for players, for anyone, if you haven't checked it out, check out Spy Connection, which is on BGG. They've got the rules there. You can kind of see how the game works. And yeah, I always like these kind of spatial Euros, I think is the point. Hansa Teutonica, which for me has been a top 5 game for a very, very long time. And I'm so glad that seeing a bit of a resurgence at the moment after Shut Up and Sit Down kind of, discovered this game, which is, it's like 12 years old at this point. And then suddenly it's like sold out in the UK or something like that, I think. But this has sort of, I think this idea has touches of Hansa Teutonica, because you're kind of making routes and using them to take actions and things like that. But yeah, I'm still kind of interested in exploring how to take this core system, which we've used in a very, very simple family game, but I think it could be the base of something bigger. So yeah, and it was a bit of a pity because I really did write. I mean, these are kind of more notes, but they're kind of like a reasonable sort of thing. And it was trying to keep this same idea of like every turn you take an action just involves you spending these discs and how these discs stay on the board can kind of give you benefits as the game goes on. Because in Spy Connection, obviously when you place your disc to claim a route, they stay there from turn to turn. So you can kind of keep using them as part of your network. It's the idea was to sort of extend that. So if I put them in a field that would be doing resources, if I keep them there, if I'm able to kind of like ration out my pieces so that I can like keep them in the fields, then that means they would keep making me resources like for free in future turns. So I was sort of always balancing this kind of like flexibility versus like engine building or like returning benefits. And yeah, I managed to kind of get through a lot of things. But as I've discovered with these sort of larger kind of Euro style games, it's not a thing I naturally comes to me when designing. I can't imagine the whole thing from the start in a way. Like for me, I think if I can't imagine the whole game, I can't see how it kind of works. I find that quite difficult. So yeah, that's kind of yeah, where that one went. But yeah, so Spy Connection should be coming out soon. I think in the next couple of months. Hopefully in the next 1 or 2 months. And yeah, you can see it and then imagine a slightly more complex game on there. Alex says, "Oh, for Shut Up and Sit Down, they do have a very strong following, and nice to see them cover some classics." Yeah, I mean, I'm really glad Hansa Teutonicus is seeing it. It still is one of, I think, the finest in terms of like interactive Euros. I really think it really stands head above the rest, I think, in terms of that. The only downside is you can't really play two, but that's because it's such an interactive game. I actually kind of said I haven't played it. I have my own kind of like collector's edition because I do have. It's one of the few games that I did actually get everything going along. So always at Essen, I pick up the new maps and things like that. But yeah, I don't get to play it so much because because of that obviously requirement of having 3 players really. Okay, probably 1 or 2 more. I'm not sure. Well, I can say one just very quickly, which is more of a one-word kind of pitch. It's basically for a very long time I'm still kind of obsessed with multi-deck building games. So it's a little bit from there's a game called, which I can't remember. Kashgar. It's called Kashgar, which is an old Cosmos game. I mean, not that old, and it got reprinted by, or it was made an English version by Grail Games. And basically, in Kashgar, you have these caravans, which are 3 columns of cards, and the idea is each turn, if I can remember right, you choose 1 card in a caravan at the front and do it, and then the card goes to the back. So it's kind of this like slow deck building and they're separate decks basically. And I think it's a really great system. It was the same author did a 2-player Legends of Andor's game, which was cooperative, but used some of the same mechanisms. Unfortunately, that game never came to English. Tom from Slicker Drips did a video with some paste ups. Every time I would see the Wolfgang from Cosmos, I would say, when is this game coming to English? Because it always looks so interesting. But unfortunately it never did. So I am still obsessed with having a deck building game where you have multiple decks. And I guess a lot of what I've been sort of thinking about, instead of having it like this, but really having them kind of shuffled, and then you reveal the top card of each deck, and you kind of, that's your hand, and you kind of get to do everything. And then of course then they're discarded to the bottom of the deck and so on and so forth. Never quite cracked exactly like how it can work. But it's something that's kind of like a one line pitch to people to see what you might make do of that and things like that. Rob says, quite amusing seeing Social down frothing recently about things like Hansa Teutonicus, Tigris and Euphrates, Modena, El Grande, etc. Well, I mean, I think the Tigris and Euphrates review is quite old though, isn't it? Like, so they've I guess it's just interesting, just that again the impact, for good or for worse, the kind of oversized impact of just a few kind of influencers. I don't want to use the word influencers, but it is funny that it really is concentrated just a few channels like that. And if you're able to, and especially like Shut Up and Sit Down doesn't exactly cover that many games as videos. They don't make that many videos. So if you manage to get a game covered by them, then that's fantastic. And obviously they can do great things for sales. But it's just a funny thing how it works out. But I do salute them for really. I think they try a very wide range of games, and their podcast is very good as well. I quite enjoy that. So definitely works out the way it does. The last one maybe for now, because I feel like I've been throwing ideas at everyone for a little while, is something I say, Five Tribes Euro. I mean, I love Five Tribes. Probably one of my favorite Bruno Cathala games. Even though I maybe I've said this on stream before, it's one of my very sad things. I have a copy of Five Tribes that I bought, I think on eBay, secondhand. I'd sort of held off for a long time from buying it. And I should say before the kind of lockdown, I didn't actually buy games very often at all. And I finally cracked and got this secondhand copy, and it arrived a few days after I left Cambridge to come to Prague for the lockdown. So that was over, about a year ago, and it's been sitting in Cambridge ever since. And I haven't got it, even though I'd love to play it. So a very favorite game of mine, and I sort of been playing around, playing around with different takes on that a little bit, and maybe it doesn't, maybe the 5 drives thing is a bit of a misnomer, but I'll try and explain how it kind of works. I sort of had the idea of, I see, like in 5 tribes, obviously all the meeples sort of start out on the board. And I sort of had this idea that instead of doing that they would start concentrated and then spread out. So you would get to a point where there would be 1 meeple on each tile by the end of the game. And some of the ideas I had where you'd have different colors, and no person's played it, like 5 tribes, there's just 5 colors in the game. And the idea would be that you're able to, basically you would select a color in a particular camp, and you would essentially move pieces from that camp. Whoops, my Siri thinks I'm talking to it. You basically would keep getting to move people from that camp until you hit a space that matches the color. So you would I could take all 3 of these yellows and I'd put 1 here and then I'd stop because I've essentially, reached that spot. And then maybe I'd get to activate an ability on that yellow tile, I'm not sure. But you would only be able to do that if you're able to make that move. I can't take this blue person off because I can't reach this blue tile. I could go in this direction though, and I could move the blue and just plop it down here. And the idea is on a later turn, you skip over any spaces which are already occupied. So basically the board evolves depending on how the players move. And, pieces might be able to reach spaces they wouldn't be able to before, essentially. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the idea. I think and there's sort of a variant on it as well, where you basically would always get to move all the pieces as far as you could, and you would always get the last space that you put the meeple in, basically. So in this case, I would take my 3 yellow meeples and I'd move them in a straight line. I would always get the space of this blue tile because it was the last space I placed, kind of a bit Mancala-esque. But I'd also get any spaces which match the color, so I could sort of chain some abilities together, for example. Again, like orange here, you'd get to sort of 2 actions here, and then you still had the same sense of skipping over occupied spaces, essentially. And it was interesting because I had even 2 modes of this game. Okay, these are the 2 modes. Yeah, the first mode was what I talked about, where you have to move so that you match wherever you end to. And then you have a kind of more Euro-y kind of thing where you get kind of more of the actions as you go across. I see there seems to be some interest from Rory likes it. Good to know. Good with the nautical thing. No, thanks very much. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I don't know why. It's interesting. I did actually make a prototype with the abstract rules, and it never kind of worked out how to make that work. But maybe something a bit more with actions and sort of claiming things. It's also a bit like That's My Fish slightly. It has a little bit of that feeling. I also wanted some way for basically you to unlock more camps as the game goes on, because I didn't want the kind of 5 tribes problem, which is you have this 0th turn problem where the board is so complicated at the start of the game and it's just so much to pass. I kind of wanted to blossom out, or at least have new opportunities as you go. Yeah, so that is open for people to have a look at. It's definitely something I am still kind of interested in working on, and as even looking at it, it makes me think I should go back and have a look at it. It's why don't you just knock up a board or something and do it? Yeah, anyway, it is the way it goes. Yeah, so I think that was a pretty rapid fire through some ideas. Yeah, it's interesting going back over old ideas and realizing why it makes me realize how much a slave I am a little bit to momentum. If I don't feel momentum with a design early on, I find it even though I find it easy enough to make a first prototype, if I don't feel that magic early on, or a shred of something that's interesting, then I find it quite hard to sort of move forward. Yeah, Jay, you're right. Yeah, so many ideas, too little time, and that's true. I think also part of this is obviously I'm showing the games I didn't work on, but throughout the time frame of these games, which is kind of over the last year or 2 years, there have been other games where I've started and finished, and sold to publishers. So yeah, exactly. It's not like every idea fails, and obviously sometimes you have a couple of ideas, you try them both out, and you just select whichever one was kind of working the best. That you feel like how you're going to keep going with it. So yeah, it is so many ideas and too little time is definitely a true thing that we designers have to sort of struggle with, I guess. But Banjo solo game. I don't know. Oh, is this the folk dance kind of idea or something like that? Yeah. Anyway, so I hope that was kind of semi-interesting to folks, and I tried to make it as visual as possible. I can't really hold a candle to Daniel on that point, certainly, but I certainly enjoyed it. I thought maybe to sort of close out the stream, seeing as we always do a little bit of puzzling, maybe I could show you a skyscraper puzzle and how it kind of works, and that might be interesting to folks. What I might do is I might see if I could make a let's do a 5x5 normal one. Yeah, this looks a bit more normal. Thanks very much, Ben. Yeah, thanks, Alex. Yeah, and thanks very much for hanging around and enjoying it. It's been a pretty interesting kind of thing. More interactive than Daniel. That's true. But Daniel does stream as well. I think it's just that I seem to have more time than him, so that's the thing. But yeah. So if I fire back up some skyscrapers, we can kind of go through it, and you can, if for those who do like the puzzles, maybe this will introduce you to a new kind of puzzle that you might enjoy. So yeah, it's known as skyscrapers colloquially. You do see them sometimes in newspapers. And yeah, as I said before, the rules of the puzzle are essentially a bit like Sudoku. In this case, it's a 5x5, so each row and column has to have the numbers 1 through 5 once each, and that's the rules. And then you have these indications at the ends of the rows or columns, which basically looking from this direction in along the row or column, that's how many buildings you can see. And again, like the 5 is the tallest building, so you always see the 5 in each row or column, no matter which direction you look at. And a taller building always hides the shorter buildings behind it when you're looking along. So for example, in this square here, this has to be 5 because I can only see one building in this column. If the 5 wasn't here, if it was back here somewhere, then I would still be able to see the 5, and I would see at least what's straight here in front of it, because nothing can mask this, essentially. Hey, Mandela, yeah, no worries. Yeah, thanks very much for dropping by. Yeah, glad I hope it will brew some things in folks' head. And Mandela, don't worry, I remember that I do owe you some work on the Dice Dungeon. I need to do that, and I will do that soon, probably early tomorrow, I hope. So yeah, so this is a 5. You can put that there. So that's sort of where we start. And then I'm not sure if you can put maybe you can put some. No, there's no way to put. Oh yes, there is a way to put clues. So, like for example, when you see a 4, you know that the 5 can't be in these first 3 spaces because the 5's always going to block. There's maybe a bit of black box. Yeah, I'm not sure. If the 5 was, for example, here, it would block anything behind it, which means at maximum you can only see 3 here, which would break this clue. So you know that the 5 has to be in one of these back ones here. And interestingly enough, you know when you look at this clue from the 3, the 5 can't be here because the 5 was here. Then again, you'd only see 2 things for this 3. So you know that actually this must be 5, and there's nothing here. So here, I mean, and this is this is a bit of an easy one. You normally wouldn't have clues like this, but when you have a 5, then you know that the numbers must be in order going along so that you can see them all individually perfectly, and that gives you a very easy point about how that works essentially. Let's keep going. So. Yeah, usually the way is to try and find where all the 5s are, essentially. So we've got there need to be 5s in these 4 squares. Like they can't be in the same row or column, but you know that because the 5s cut off everything else that we already have. So we kind of know that already. And we can look at the clues to see if anything would make sense. And actually both are possible. Like even if a 5 was here, you could have three numbers up here. So this is where I would sort of keep thinking. So you know that this can't be a 2, because if this was a 2, then there'd either be a 3 or 4 somewhere here, even if you had a 4 here immediately. So if you had like 2, 4, but then you would see 3 numbers. So this can't be a 2, so it has to be a 3 or a 4. Yeah, if it was a 4, that's fine. And actually, no, it can't be a 3, because if it was a 3, then there'd still be a 4, you know, behind it essentially. So we know that this actually has to be 4. So then, yeah. So that's kind of how it's going so far. So we know the 4, like in this column, 4 can't be here. It can be here. So we know 4 is in either of these. Because if the 4 was here, then you'd only see 2, 4, 5. You'd only see 3 in this row, essentially. So yeah, you essentially sort of build up different clues. Sorry, I'm slightly ignoring the chat about the hoedown showdown, do si do or die. That's a cool like little thing. Hey, Rory. Oh, no worries. Thanks very much for coming by. Nice to see you as always. Oh, I'm getting some help from the chat. Wait a minute. Ben, left side column solvable 2 from the 3 up clue. Excellent. Thank you very much. So probably it could be like 1, 3, or it could be 2, 3. We know this can't be 3. Oh yes, that's where. Yeah, so this square can't be 3, because if this was 3, then you'd only see 2 numbers, because we only got 1 and 2 left. 3 can't be here because there's a 3 already over here. So this has to be 3, and then that tells us probably, well, this is either 1 or 2, and this is either 1 or 2 as well. So I don't think we can necessarily knock either of those out, because they will both work. They'll both give you the necessary 3 numbers. And it still works with this clue coming across this way, like 1 or 2 here would still both work. So, but we're getting a bit closer. So these are both 2, 3, because that's all that's left in this row along here, for example. Yeah, so oh, I get nonogram. Oh yes, on the side there's nonogram pads. Yeah, I guess they're there. I mean, they're all sort of all in the same sort of universe of games, effectively. But there's a lot. I would check out Conceptus Puzzles. Have really great apps, at least on iOS. I'm not sure on Android. But they have lots of the families of these types of different puzzles, and the app's quite good. And you can get a certain amount of free puzzles, which is also good as well. Would definitely recommend them. So we continue. So now I'm probably going to have a quick check of my clues. So this 2 is already done, so that's fine. This 3 we're sort of working on. The 1 is done. The 5 is done. This 4 is quite interesting. And definitely makes me think, yeah, because it's kind of forced, but we can probably work it out. So if the 4 is here, then it actually doesn't matter where the 3 and the 1 are, because the 1 is going to be blocked. I mean, the 1 is always going to be blocked. If the 4 is here, then the 3 has to be here. That's what we know. So yeah, we have this 4 and this 3. Okay, I don't quite. So this 3, we had a look for that. That's fine. So I could probably, maybe I could try and work out where the 4s are. That's also possible. So we're missing 4. So the 4s are in this. So we've kind of got 4s in could be in these 3 lines, but the 4 can be there. So yeah, certainly it's not a puzzle I'm used to. Well, I haven't done one for a while, so you could see I'm taking more time than. So if anyone has clues, do throw them out to me. I hope it's not too interminable to try and watch me, muddle my way through it. So let's see, where could a so we went over this already here. So it's like 4. This would be like 4, 3, 1. And if the 4 was here, then it doesn't matter where these go. These could both have 1, 3. So it doesn't sort of block things there. Fives don't matter. I mean, we know this is 1, 2 as well, because it can't be 5. So the only things left is 1 and 2. Yeah, Alex, nice. Thanks for dropping by. So yeah, I basically now just sort of putting in all my markings, which sometimes you can sort of discover things from this. So this is either 1 or 3, because it can't be 2 or 5, and it can't be 4. This can be 4. It could also be 1, 2, or 4. That's not helping very much. This can, yeah. Just sort of, I don't want to give up on Stray. I guess it's the funny thing is sometimes with these puzzles, like I'm not so what's the word, like tied to it, that if I'm really stuck, I'll just go off and do something else and come back to it. But now that I'm streaming it, I really feel like I have to break through for you all so that we can get some success. And I'm trying also not to do the kind of brute forcey thing where sometimes where you feel like you're a bit stuck with the puzzle, and especially where you have like a choice of 2 numbers, I would just start by going, okay, now I'm just going to put some numbers in and just kind of see how it goes, and until I hit a kind of a mistake. The moment I hit where you hit something that's impossible, then you know you've made the wrong choice and you know it has to be something else. But of course, that's kind of brute forcing the puzzle, which is not as much fun, realistically. I feel like there's probably something here that I should, like for example, if this is 4, I think this can't be 4, basically, because if this were 4, then we would have a 1 or a 2 here, and there's going to be a 3 in one of these squares. Hey, D-Anchor, how are you going? Welcome to the stream. We've sort of finished the more game designy sort of chat, and I like to finish with a puzzle often. So we're taking a look at the skyscraper type of puzzle. So it's a bit like Sudoku. You need 1 through 5 in each row and column, and the numbers on the outside tell you how many buildings you can see as you look along that row or column. And basically, like a 1 is like a 1 height building, 2 is a 2 height building, and buildings that are taller block all the shorter ones behind them. And I've just worked out that this cannot be 4 here, because if it was 4, Oh, okay. There's another game. Okay, I will Monopoly. I will have a look at it. Yeah. So anyway, so this can't be 4, and neither of these can be 4. So this must be 4. Is the point from all of that? Which means we know this can be 1, 2, or 3, which is fine. So we know that either of these is 4 because there are 4s everywhere else. But again, well, this can be 4. Yeah, these are still both able to be 4s essentially, I think. Yeah, you're best. Thanks very much. Thanks for the support there. Yeah, so but that's it. With some of these sort of puzzles, you just make very kind of slow progress until you kind of crack it. So yes, actually, I think this probably can't be 3. I am now thinking, because if it were 3, this would be 1 or 2 and 3, and then this would be 4, and we can't have that like 2, 3, 4, 5. So the 3 basically has to be behind the 4, definitely. So we can probably maybe narrow down what this is. So it can't be 3 and it can't be 5. Can it be? Actually, probably can't be 2 either, because if it's 2, it means this one's 1. Then you have 1, 2, 4, and you have that same problem. So this can't be 2. It can't be 3. It can be 1. Yes, it can be 1. Do I play chess? Yes, I have played chess. I don't play it much anymore, but I did play it when I was younger. Yeah, because you basically can have 2, 4, and then it doesn't matter what these are, and then 5, or you can have 1, 4, anything, or you can have like 2, 1, 4. So those are all sort of possible. And where else can 2 be? 2 can't be here, but then 2, once we're behind it, can be anything you want, basically. Okay. So obviously these can both be 1 or 2. 1, 3, 4 along here. I mean, this 4 clue definitely, like, for example, say this isn't, I mean, we know that can't be 4. If this is 4 and this is 1, this can't be right. But if this is 4, then it doesn't matter. And we kind of went over that already. Thanks for everyone sort of hanging around. Feel free to do as you wish. Yeah, I am definitely quite rusty on these generally. So we're sort of stuck on this one. No worries. Thanks very much, Robin. Thanks for dropping by. Have a nice evening. It's gonna crumble when we get one more. I feel like one more number, it's gonna just sort of break open, but we haven't quite got there yet. Well, like we could ask, can this be 1 or 2? I mean, it can be 1 or 2. 2, 3. And sometimes you're looking for basically like paired numbers. Sometimes you work out that like 2 squares both only have an option of 2 numbers which are the same, and that immediately tells you that they have to be in those 2 squares. Like here, you know that the 1 and 2 have to be between these 2 squares, and sometimes you're sort of trying to pair it up across the others. So let's just go over this again. What can this be here? This, I feel like here's where the solution has to come. So it can be 1 because we can have like 2, 1, 4. So it really can only be 1 or 4. That's what we know. So then the question is, can this be, because what we want to kind of force this to be, we want to force this square to also be 1 or 4. So let's try and prove that this can't be 3. So if it is 3, in fact, it actually can't be 3. Yeah, because if this is 3, then we can't get 4 numbers along here. The 1 is going to always be hidden, and the 4 will be, so this can't be 3. So this is also 1 or 4, which is good because it forces these to be 1, 4. So then we have, so this can't be, and then we can't have 3 in either of these rows. So the 3 has to be here, which means if we have the 1 is here, then that can't work because you have 3, 1, 5. Like you're basically not going to be able to get, yeah, this has to be 4. Then either of these can be 5, and that's fine. Then these are like, this is 1 or 3. This is also now 1 or 3. I'm not sure if I'm following what you thought it was, Bath. But now this one's 1. This is 5 or 2. But we know with this that this now has to be 2. So I think, yeah, now it's going to fall out basically. This has to be 4. That has to be 3. This has to be 1. This has to be 2. This has to be 1. This has to be 5. This has to be 2. This has to be 5. This has to be 3. And this has to be 2. And I think that's it. I don't know if it tells you, if I say done, does it tell me? Yeah, it tells me I can submit my score to the Hall of Fame. Yeah, it only took me about 20 minutes. But yeah, so that's Skyscrapers. So yeah, it's a fun sort of puzzle, and yeah, there's obviously lots of variation, and sort of the size of the puzzle obviously makes things harder and things like that. But yeah, so that is probably going to do me for today. But thank you all for dropping by. I hope you're all had a great day. Have a nice evening wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Play some games if you have a chance. And I shall be back on Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. GMT, 10 a.m. Central European time for Board Game Cuppa. A bit more, relaxed chat, general sort of chat about games and game design, all that sort of thing. But yeah, so let's go off and raid somewhere. So if anyone has a recommendation who to raid, I'm always up for recommendations. But otherwise, I will look and see who is streaming. Collected Camel's streaming, but I have a feeling he said that he was replaying some old things. Clea Llewellyn, who plays some really lovely music. We've raided her a few times, which is always nice. So I'll give chat a brief delay to catch up with lag, but if there aren't any other suggestions, then I think we'll go off and listen to some nice music for the evening. But yeah, so let's do that. Well, so thank you very much for everyone, and yeah, have a great evening, and see you back on Wednesday. And until then, stay safe and hope you're well, and yeah, shall see you then. Great. All right. Take care, everyone. Thanks very much. Bye.